My name is Roy Donkin, and today I'm going to share with you a review of the Monster 7 microphone by Sire. You may know Sire as a bass company. They partnered with Marcus Miller to design a bass, to produce a bass that he felt he would be willing to play as a high-end professional bass player, but would be price pointed for even beginners. And they succeeded in that. They built a wonderful instrument. Well, they've set their sight on the microphone market as well. And I should say that the company sent me 2 of these microphones for free to test, to listen to play with, to see how I liked, in return for making this review. There was no expectation that I would give a positive review. They certainly would like that, but there was no requirement of that. So any opinions that I give here today are my opinions, and they are honest about the new Monster 7 microphone by Sire. Let me first tell you a little bit about myself. I play fretless bass and acoustic guitar as a side player for a couple of acts. I play fretless bass in a church band, and I produce a small acoustic music series called Cambridge Drive Concerts in Goleta, California, outside of Santa Barbara. The series and the church band are both at the Cambridge Drive Community Church there in Goleta. Microphones. Microphones are funny things because they all sound different. We expect that you buy a microphone and it's going to reproduce exactly what goes into it, but that's never the case. Even the very, very most wonderful and expensive microphones all add a little bit here, they take a little bit away there, they each have their own unique characteristics, and they each bring something different to whatever the dance is that you're doing. That's intuitive. We see that if you go into a high-end recording studio, you'll see that they've got a locker of different microphones. And when the engineer is setting up for whoever he's going to record, he or she will pick microphones according to what they're trying to accomplish. For one singer, they'll pull out one microphone. For another singer, a different one. If they're going to be recording a drum set, something different yet. An acoustic guitar, yet another one. Because each one sounds different. The same is true when we talk about microphones that we use on stage. And for that reason, we try to have a different bunch of microphones at our concert series. We have different singers come in. They'll sound better or worse with one microphone over another. One might emphasize the low end, another some mids so that it can cut through a mix. Yet another might have a very high end that's very nice and airy. Some are more susceptible to plosives, P's and B sounds, some to sibilants. Some have more handling noise. If you touch the microphone or the microphone stand, you'll hear that more. Others have more proximity effect. That is, as you get closer and further away from the front of the microphone, the bass response changes. All of that adds up to a very different sounding mic. So we have a bunch, 6 or 7 different microphones that we use both with the church band and in our concert series. So the first test that we did with the Monster 7 was to do what we might do with a singer when they showed up at the concert series, but we did it with the entire church band. We lined up 5 different microphones and had the 4 singers of the church band go down the microphones and sing into each one of them. Now, the 4 singers are very different. We have 2 male singers, both baritones, but with fairly different tonalities, and then 2 females, one with a rich, deep alto voice and the other with a soprano voice that's a little bit thinner. So we had them sing into each of 5 microphones, went down the list, and then told us what they thought was best while the rest of us listened, and we decided what we thought was best. So, what did they sing into? First in line, we had a Heil PR35. It's a dynamic mic. It's a wonderful, wonderful mic. It's one of my first choices, especially for male singers. It's a great mic. Problem with it, it does have a bit of susceptibility to plosives and to handling noise. Next, we had an AKG 535. This is a condenser mic. They're a little bit more fragile, Wonderful, wonderful mic. Sounds a lot like the Heil, but with a little less low end, really nice high end. This is often our go-to for female singers. Next, they sang through the Monster 7, which we'll talk about a little more in a few minutes. Then the Heil PR20. This is the lowest end microphone in our choices here. It's got a little bit more hyped low end. It's very susceptible to handling noise and plosives. So we would never put this on a singer who was going to hold it in their hand. Some folk really like that low end. And last, we had a Gauge ECM 80. This mic is very, very bright sounding. Also a dynamic. So we had the four singers go down the line and sing into each of the mics and tell us what they thought. Let us know what struck them. Well, three of the four singers came out with two choices that were even. And they were different choices for those 3 or 4 singers, but every one of those 3 had the Monster 7 as one of their 2 choices. The 4th singer, one of the males, strongly preferred the higher low end of the Heil PR20, and he was very adamant that that was the mic he wanted to sing with. We didn't all necessarily agree with him, but he's going to sing through it, so he can choose. We did find that everybody agreed, other than that one, with the 3 singers as to what their choices were. We were surprised that the Monster 7 sounded really good on all 3 of those voices. And indeed, it sounded good on the 4th one as well. Which is not necessarily what you'd expect, because, again, you think that one mic really might sound better than another for some of the people. But this one really came out in the top 2 for everybody. So, then we decided what we were going to do the following Sunday and from here on. So the first male singer, we decided to put the Heil PR35, although this was a real toss-up. We might swap it out for a Monster 7 at any given time. The deeper, richer female voice is going with a Monster 7. The higher, thinner female voice with the AKG 535, although again, we could very easily swap this out for the Monster 7 and she would not complain a bit and no one else would complain. And then the second male singer will have the Heil PR20. Our second test was at a fundraiser concert that we did for a musician, singer-songwriter who's been struggling with a very serious illness and all the finances related to that. She's a marvelous musician, and that attracted a lot of really high-end talent. So we had 10 acts who performed at this concert, and it included touring pros, a couple of journeyman professional singer-songwriters, 2 professional producer, engineer types, and 1 very talented amateur. We set the stage up with 3 stations, 2 for acoustic guitar players, and each of those had a Monster 7 for the voice. That was what we expected would be used by far the most, those 2 stations. And then the third one at an acoustic piano, and because we have only 2 of the Monster 7s, we put the Heil PR35 there at the piano. Again, I was struck that everybody sounded good through the Monster 7. I did notice one female singer had a bit of a thinner voice, and there was some thinness with the microphone for her. I expect if she was choosing, she might have asked for something with a little bit heavier bottom end. She might even have liked something like the Heil PR20. It wasn't anything that I couldn't fix with just a tiny bump in the low end EQ, which is what I did for her, and it all worked out fine. We also noticed that there were some plosive problems with a couple of folk, and frankly I didn't pay attention well enough to see if it was one of the 2 monsters versus the other, which may have indicated some difference between those 2 individual microphones. whether it was coming from both of them or whether it just was a reflection of a bit of poor technique on the performer's parts. And again, I didn't really pay strong enough attention to get to know that. I was too busy trying to make sure that the mixes were working well for all of the performers. One of the performers, I'd asked all of them to talk to me afterwards about the Monster 7 if they had any thoughts. One of the performers, one of the women, came up to me and she thought that it was a little sensitive to distance. She felt that as she got farther away, it dropped in volume more than she liked, or as if she got off axis a bit, it dropped in volume more than she liked. I didn't notice that, and certainly if it's there, I didn't see it as any worse than any other microphone that we have. So I can't really speak to that. So, conclusions. The Monster 7 held its own against all of our other microphones. All of our other microphones. And if I was out looking to purchase a mic today and this one was on the market, I don't know when it comes on the market, I certainly would look very seriously at it. As I said, I really like both the Heil PR35 and the AKG 535. The Monster 7 holds its own in that company. It's an equally good microphone to those two. They're, again, 270, 350, 370 microphones, and I would consider purchasing one of these in that same price range. That said, as I understand it, Sire is going to be releasing this microphone in a box of 2, like this, this is what they sent me. And again, as I understand it, the Monster 7 Red is going to retail for about $130 for 2. At that price point, it strikes me as a no-brainer. If you've got a small series, if you've got a church and you've got a bunch of different singers that you want to have different microphones for, buy a box of these or 2 boxes of these so that you've got that option for different singers to choose from. If you're out looking for a mic for yourself, again, I would very, very highly recommend that you look at the Monster 7. Go, once it's available somewhere, go and try and hear it. If it's possible they'll only be selling it online. At this price point, you know, it strikes me as it's really worth taking the chance on. Again, I would put it in the same quality category as microphones that cost 5 times as much. Now, you may have noticed when I held the box up, there's no space for microphone clips there. This box didn't come with any. I don't know if it will market with them or not. That was a little problematic because the microphone is a little fatter than the common Shure SM58. So I had to look a bit to find a clip that fit for it. You know, there are the clothespin kinds of clips, and they worked fine with it. I also found one, I think it was from the company On Stand. They marketed it as aimed at use with a wireless mic. It's a little bit bigger, and it fit really, really nicely. I think that clip was $10, and the clothespin clip was about $5. So you could spend another $10 to $20 on clips for your 2 microphones, and you'd still be well under a $150 price point. Again, it's a no-brainer. The Monster 7 by Sire, honest opinion, I highly, highly recommend it. And this will be one of my go-to mics from now on, along with that Heil PR35 and the AKG 535. It's just a really, really nice mic. Thanks.